What is going on, everybody? We got an updated mock draft from Matt Miller, one of the most respected draft analysts, works for ESPN. I want to break it down because after the Senior Bowl ended, we got a lot of risers. We got some guys that kind of have fallen a little bit, and we're starting to see a bigger picture, right? A lot of people don't realize this, but the Senior Bowl is where a lot of talk happens between GMs of one team to another, scouts, coaches. All these guys start to talk about some of these prospects, and guys like Matt Miller pick up a lot of what's kind of being reported. So this mock draft, I think, is going to be a lot more accurate, and we're going to start to see the narrative shift on some of these players. And just kind of looking it over, there's definitely some very interesting things. First and foremost, you can see right away the Colts trade up with the Chicago Bears. And they take Bryce Young with the #1 overall pick, and then the Houston Texans take Will Levis with the 2nd overall pick. So back-to-back picks at quarterback, which makes sense, right? I think, at least in my opinion, quarterback's the most important position out there. It's the one position that can, one of the best teams can either be an average team or the best team based off quarterback play alone. And it's interesting because the Texans could have had that #1 overall pick. Had they just tanked properly, man, they would have had Bryce Young, but instead they'll go with Will Levis. I don't know how much I like Levis. I do like Young a lot. Right now, I have Levis as my #4 quarterback, so for the Texans to take him #2, not a big fan of it. I do understand some people love Will Levis. #3, the Arizona Cardinals. Arguably the perfect place to pick. You're basically going to get the first non-quarterback, right? Unless the Bears end up just sticking with that #1 overall pick, you're going to be the team with the first pick at whoever it is that you want. You can go with Will Anderson. You can go with Jalen Carter. You can go with Tyree Wilson. And in this instance, Matt Miller has the Cardinals taking Will Anderson, which I guess does make sense. You guys can see kind of what Miller writes. Miller says the following, and I quote, "Anderson dominated over the past 3 years at Alabama, racking up 34.5 sacks, 184 pressures, 66 tackles for loss. His first step, quickness, and relentless motor are reminiscent of Von Miller when the future Hall of Famer was coming out of Texas A&M in 2011. Anderson can line up at DN or a stand-up rusher, and he would be a tone setter for a defense desperately in need of an identity." Very interesting what Matt Miller is saying. Personally, I like the Will Anderson pick for the Cardinals. Now, I know some people are saying Will Anderson's a little overrated. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the Will Anderson being overrated narrative at all. Of course, the Bears trade down and then take Jalen Carter. I'm all for either one of these guys, man. Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, they are the two best players in this class. You can throw Bijan Robinson up there as well, but being a running back, I think he is going to slip a little bit. Bears get Jalen Carter. Love the pick. I think Carter and the Bears would be hand in hand. In fact, if the Bears can't trade that #1 pick back, take Jalen Carter with the 1st overall pick. He is the most sure thing in this class, at least in my opinion. You get a guy that for the next 12 to 15 years is going to be one of the best defensive players. So Jalen Carter, #4, love it. The Seahawks take Tyree Wilson. Obviously, the Seahawks will have the option here to take CJ Stroud. As you guys know, according to this mock, Will Levis and Bryce Young go 1 and 2. Tyree Wilson at 5 over CJ Stroud. Let me know what you guys think about that. Is that a reach? Is it not? I don't know. It's kind of interesting because the Seahawks could use a quarterback. Some people are saying Geno Smith is going to want like close to $30 million, and that's just not worth it for Geno Smith. Let's be honest. If Geno Smith is your quarterback and he's your future and you have to pay him 30, 40 million and he has to carry your team, I don't think he does that. Right? I don't think Geno Smith has the same success without that regime and the way they've kind of built this team, right? Run first, good set of playmakers, and the quarterback really just manages things out there, right? If Geno Smith doesn't have that, I don't know how much success he has, but I love the Tyree Wilson pick. Some people do think Tyree Wilson's a little overrated. I think he's going to be a really good football player. Obviously, he has to continue to develop, but the physical tools are there, right? You can't teach 6'6", 275. That's not teachable, right? The Lions take Devon Witherspoon. Most people have Witherspoon now as their #1 cornerback. Just a couple weeks back, he was not the #1 cornerback. He was like the 4th or 5th ranked cornerback. And we had a lot of these other guys ahead of him, right? Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter. Some people even had Rigo out of Georgia ahead of him, right? So at this point, Witherspoon is the guy, right? So kind of interesting. Raiders take Peter Skoronski. Hate this pick, man. I don't get it. Peter Skoronski is likely going to be a guard, even if he's not a guard, even if he's actually a tackle. I just don't like it. You guys can see Matt Miller says that Tom Brady announcing his retirement might have put a wrinkle in the plans for this pick, but many scouts and decision makers in the league believe the Raiders will not draft the quarterback here. You can see that Miller quote someone saying there is no way Josh is trusting a rookie quarterback with the way they struggled this year, said one AFC area scout at the Senior Bowl. I tend to agree. McDaniel seems more likely to go after Jimmy G or Jared Stidham. I just don't like the Peter Skoronski pick. I have personal reasons. I will say this. I think Peter Skoronski is the best overall offensive lineman in this class. But I just don't think he's a starter at tackle, right? I just don't see it because he's only 6'4", and that too, he doesn't have the arm length, right, that some other guys have had. So if Peter Skoronski has to play guard, right, at the next level, are you really justifying taking a guard with the 7th overall pick, right? Personally, I just don't see it. I'd way rather take CJ Stroud, who is technically still on the board at this point. I'd rather take Anthony Richardson as well, who is also on the board at this point. And I get it. Josh McDaniels may not do that because he doesn't, he has this year to really prove it. And with the rookie, you're going to struggle. But even if you're going to take a tackle, take a different guy, right? Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, Darnell, right? Take one of these other guys. I just don't like the Peter Skoronski pick at 7. But I know a lot of people are projecting that at the moment. The Falcons take Myles Murphy. I think Murphy's a little overrated as well. I've stated this in the past. I just don't see it from him. I get it. Some people are saying he has good size and explosiveness and all this stuff. He may run a high 4.5. You guys can see one scout source told Matt Miller the junior could run in the high 4.5 range of the 40-yard dash. And that's great and all. But again, I don't think Murphy is as close to Travon Walker as he is to Cleveland Burrow, to be honest with you guys. I think Murphy's much closer to Cleveland Burrow than he is Travon Walker. I think Walker was explosive, long, lengthy. I don't see that with Murphy, right? And we'll see what ends up happening as the draft continues to get closer. The Panthers take CJ Stroud. I love this pick, man. Panthers are a quarterback away from having success. CJ Stroud, in my opinion, is the best quarterback in this class. He's a guy that if you surround him with good weapons, right? And let's be honest, the best quarterbacks right now in the NFL have some of the best weapons, right? You give CJ Stroud a good set of weapons, he's going to have success. Good, in my opinion, good in the pocket, can make all the throws that you want to see out of a quarterback. I love the pick for the Panthers. The Eagles take Bijan Robinson. Some people, at least earlier, were saying Bijan Robinson was the best overall player in this class. Obviously, that's changed a little bit at where we're at now. Some people aren't saying that as much anymore, but he's still arguably a top 3 overall player in this class, right? Most people agree Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and Bijan Robinson are the 3 best players in this class. But because he's a running back, he's not going to get taken where, those other 2 guys are going to end up going top 5. This guy's not going to go top 5. This guy may not even go 10th. Some people are saying he may go in the back of the 1st round, arguably even the 2nd round. But if he goes to the Eagles, I think he's going to absolutely crush it. 1,500-yard seasons every single year because the Eagles are arguably the best offensive line in the league. And in my opinion, running back position is so heavy on offensive line. It's reliant on the line and the scheme. That's why Saquon Barkley didn't have the same success early in his career. Yeah, he got hurt a little bit, but the offensive line for the Giants wasn't that good, and he really struggled because of it. The Eagles, on the other hand, completely different. Good quarterback, good receivers, I should say. Great offensive line, great offensive line coach, and Jeff Stoutland. The best, in my opinion, in the history, not history, I shouldn't say history, but the best in the NFL, right at the moment. So, shout out to him. The Eagles take a running back. Tennessee Titans take Broderick Jones. And that's interesting because we know that there's, at least in my opinion, there's 3 top tackles. Jones, Paris Johnson, and Darnell, right? Again, I'll put Peter Skoronski as a guard. And Jones is now being mocked ahead of Paris Johnson, which is crazy. We're starting to see the trend, the shift. Jones, like Skoronski, is also 6'4", which is interesting, but Jones is much longer and is very clear right away if you watch both guys. Broderick Jones has a wide span, so gonna be interesting, right? Gonna be interesting if he ends up going with the 11th overall pick to the Titans. I do like the fit with Taylor Lewan, obviously hardly playing over the last 2 weeks. You got your first wide receiver in Jordan Addison going to the Texans. I do like the pick for the Texans. I think the Texans should draft as many playmakers as possible. Remember, they do have John Mechie, who they drafted last year in the second round. He didn't play this year. But if they take a quarterback, which they will take a quarterback, they got Mechie coming back. You add another receiver, will pick 12 rather. That's Addison or Jaxon Smith-Njigba, or maybe it's someone else like Johnston at a TCU. Add weapons. I think it's the best way to win for the Texans. They'll love it. Plus, of course, you got the running back as well. It's going to be interesting for the Texans. I love the pick for the Texans. The Jets take Paris Johnson Jr. I can get behind that pick. The Patriots take Joey Porter. A lot of people have the Patriots taking a secondary player. I don't like it. I think the Patriots need to get a wide receiver. I think the Patriots at the 14th pick, unless you take a quarterback, right, which I don't think they're going to do, but never say never if Anthony Richardson's there. Maybe the Patriots realize that Mac Jones isn't the quarterback for us. Remember, the Patriots already have a great defense. Last year, they were a top 5 defense. And I think for me, you got to add some offensive playmakers. But I understand why you want to continue to rotate in those corners. The Patriots find great corners. The scheme system, everything works perfectly. I could see the Penn State cornerback going 14 to the Patriots. Brian Branch to the Packers. Love the pick. I think Brian Branch is a special football player. If he is listed as a cornerback, or let me take this back. If let's say he's a slot corner and he may transition to the outside and he's a true corner, he is a top 7 pick. Like, his talent is off the charts, but he's a hybrid player who plays strong safety. He'll play a little bit of free safety. He'll play slot corner. He'll play linebacker. That's Brian Branch, and I think for that reason, safeties aren't valued too high. I think he's going to fall a little bit. 15th makes sense to the Packers. The Commanders take Anthony Richardson at 16. Very, very interesting. Fourth quarterback off the board. Love the pick for the Commanders, man. They got Jahan Dotson, among some other guys that I think are going to be very good for the Commanders. I think this right here makes so much sense. Terry McLaurin, Dotson, I think, are 2 really good weapons. Got 2 really good running backs as well. Throw in Anthony Richardson and see what he can do behind that offensive line. You know, hopefully they can really get together as a power run, right? Really run the ball, really do some things like that could help a quarterback like Richardson. I would love for Anthony Richardson to go to the Commanders. Obviously, the Commanders are probably in play for Derek Carr as well. But I like Anthony Richardson there more. I think that gives him a little bit more firepower on the offensive side. Pittsburgh Steelers take Christian Gonzalez. Kind of interesting how the corner market is kind of shifting. Witherspoon's now the best corner, and Gonzalez is now the 3rd or 4th corner. 4 weeks ago, it was the opposite. Gonzalez was the best corner in this class. Kind of interesting. The Detroit Lions take Lukas Van Ness out of Iowa. There are people out there on Twitter, right, draft scouts, people who watch tape, who say Lukas Van Ness could be the best defensive lineman in this class. The guy wasn't utilized as much at Iowa for whatever reason, but based off the traits, the size, the pass rush technique, just his skill set makes him one of the best defensive linemen in this class. Obviously, for him, he's not that Will Anderson bend, explosiveness, do things differently, right? From a physical standpoint, that's not Lukas Van Ness, but from a technical standpoint, the guy has it, and I think he may be the best defensive lineman in this class. And don't be surprised if he goes 7th to the Raiders or 8th to the Falcons or even 5th to the Seahawks. Don't be surprised if he ends up being the 3rd defensive lineman in this draft drafted. Don't be surprised. I think the guy's going to be really, 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 really good. 6'5", 270. He has everything going for him, man. Very interesting player. The Buccaneers take Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback out of Mississippi State. I'm kind of surprised Forbes is going so high. in this draft. A lot of cornerbacks. I think this class doesn't have a lot of good corners. There's a lot of them, but I don't know if they're all truly first-round guys. Obviously, we had 2 last year go not in the first round, some second-round corners. We even had Marcus Jones go, I think, in the 3rd round. Ended up being really, really, really good, and cornerbacks are the position you need a lot of. So I can see why Emmanuel Forbes ended up going 19th overall to the Bucks. The Seahawks take Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Love the pick, man. My #1 wide receiver. I think he's going to be a superstar in the league. I remember what he did in 2021. Behind Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, still produced the best numbers among the 3. Again, I think he's going to be... I think people are overthinking him a little bit. I know there's some size concerns, there's some injury concerns, but the guy, if he's not the true #1 guy, right? Like, let's say he goes to the Raiders and he's behind Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, right? Or he goes to the Seahawks and he's behind Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I think he's going to have a lot of success. The Chargers take Nolan Smith. We're finally starting to see Nolan Smith get drafted in the 1st round. I think a lot of drafts previously didn't have him going in the 1st. Obviously, he missed a lot of this past season with an injury. It was a torn pectoral muscle late in October, ended his season. Going to be an interesting year for Nolan Smith, right? Because he was part of that Georgia defensive line that was dominant, right? We'll see where he ends up getting taken. Goes to the Chargers in this one. Quentin Johnston goes to the Baltimore Ravens. That one's going to be an interesting pick because the Ravens need some help on the offensive side. They've pretty much relied on rookie players for Lamar Jackson, and they got to pay Lamar this year. So we'll see what ends up happening there. The Vikings take Drew Sanders with the 23rd overall pick. That's interesting because, again, Matt Miller starting to make these flips a little bit, right? Drew Sanders was not the #1 linebacker in this class, and Matt Miller has him as the #1 linebacker here. So that'll be interesting. Drew Sanders did play at Alabama, so don't think that he went to Arkansas and only played against, although they play similar competition. Obviously, Arkansas doesn't get into the playoffs, generally speaking, but Drew Sanders played for Alabama, and there's tape of him going up against some of the best offensive lines over the last year or 2. So that one's going to be an interesting one. Then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Darnell Wright. We're finally seeing it, right? We're finally seeing Darnell Wright mocked in the 1st round. I think we're going to just continue to see it go higher and higher and higher, where he will be the first tackle taken. I think at some point we're going to start seeing Darnell Wright #7 to the Raiders, right? Because right now everyone's mocking a tackle to the Raiders. I think we're going to get to the point where Darnell Wright starts being that guy that gets mocked to the Raiders at #7. In my opinion, he is the best tackler. He's the surest tackle in this class. Paris Johnson at 6'6" may have the most upside. Broderick Jones, some people say, has upside as well, but I think Darnell Wright is the best today. 24th overall. Remember, just a week ago, this guy was getting mocked as like the 60th prospect. So now he's finally starting to be ranked in the 1st round. Love the pick for the Jaguars. They may not have the money to pay Jawan Taylor, so this one could make sense. The Giants take Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. Love the wide receiver. Quick, explosive, can out jump anybody, in my opinion. Goes to the Giants, and it's just the perfect fit for me. The Giants need to continue to add offensive weapons, right? Give Daniel Jones what he needs. You want a guy that you can throw it deep to, but you want a guy that can also take a screen past the distance, and this guy is it. The Cowboys take Osiris Torrence. Don't love the pick, in my opinion. I know Connor McGovern. I believe he's a free agent, and I get it. You may take Torrence and put him at left guard, Martin at right guard. You have a great offensive line with those 2 guys on the inside. Got Tyler Smith at left tackle. And then you'll have, at least in my opinion, I don't think Tyron Smith should be back next year. I think it's time to move on. And you let Terrence Steele come back at right tackle, let him get healthy. I get how that could be a great offense line with Biadish in the middle, but I think Connor McGovern and Torrence are going to cost about the same, right? Torrence isn't so cheap, and don't quote me on the exact price, but he's going to be like $2 million a year, right? Is McGovern going to be that much more? Like, I would make the argument to give McGovern $10 million over the next 3 years, right? Give him about $3 million a year. $3.3 million a year over the next couple of years, and let him be your guard. The guy's a good guard in the NFL. Now, obviously, if he wants more than that, maybe you let him walk and draft a replacement. I'm just not sure if you take Torrence. Now, I will say this. I think Torrence is the best overall offensive lineman, positional value not mattering, or at least he's one of two, the other being the Minnesota center. I think Torrence may be the best, though. His tape against Jalen Carter was fantastic, and I have a video of it on YouTube. If you search Jalen Carter versus Osiris Torrence, I broke down every single rep of them going one-on-one, and Torrence held his own a lot. Like a lot. The guy's going to be a beast. The Bills take Cody Mock. We're seeing him get ranked in the first round as well. I don't know if I agree with it. Remember Tevin Jenkins won in the first round 2 years ago because of his Senior Bowl tape and how he was bowling people. He ended up going from right tackle to right guard, and he's now a right guard, and he'll be a long-term guard. I think Mock is also a guard, and I think if the Bills want a true guard, I don't know if Mock makes sense at 27. I think in the second round, there's like 5 guys you can arguably take. But I could also see why you would take him with the 27th overall pick. Again, I think he's going to be a good football player, but 6'5", 305 pounds. Remember, he added like 80 pounds over the past couple of years. He was a tight end initially, switched over to tackle. I don't know. How much bigger is he going to get from his 305 pounds? Just something to kind of think about. I think he's very scheme specific, which is zone specifically. The Bengals take Michael Mayer at a Notre Dame. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it. I understand you have Hayden Hurst, who only signed a 1-year contract, but I would value bringing Hurst back as opposed to drafting Michael Mayer because he may never work out. He may never pan out. Tight ends are hard to hit on. It's like the one position where you don't really know if these guys are going to have success or not. Keon White, D-end out of Georgia Tech of the Saints. Love the pick, man. In my opinion, the one guy that had his stock rise more than anybody else in the Senior Bowl. I shouldn't say more than anyone else, but the guy wasn't mocked in the first 2 rounds. But he had the potential, and in the Senior Bowl, he showed he can hang with these guys. So I love the pick for him. Going to the Saints at pick 29. The Chiefs got Derek Hall, another Senior Bowl riser. A lot of good reps against some of the top tackles. Love the pick. Eagles take Darnell Washington. Don't love the pick, but I guess I understand it. When you're Georgia, you have guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Like Jordan Davis was like 6'7", 375, and moved well. Then you got Jalen Carter, who is crazy in his pass rush technique. And then you get, a Darnell Washington, who's like a 6'8" tight end. Right? You bring all these different pieces in, and that only works if you're Georgia, right? If you build that way. And the only team that's like Georgia in the NFL is the Philadelphia Eagles. Great O-line, great D-line, arguably top 3 at both O-line and D-line. And now you're adding a guy like Darnell Washington, who's a unique football player, right? 6'7", 6'8", can move well, could always transition as a full-time blocker, right? Not tight end, not tackle necessarily, but he could develop into a true blocker, right? Like a guy that maybe it's a whole new position that you're kind of adding, right? But I love the pick of Darnell Washington. I just don't know if he makes sense to go in the first round. Because he doesn't, at least in my opinion, have the skill set to be a true, I don't know how to say it exactly because he can out jump a lot of people, but he doesn't have like the Darren Waller route running or the Travis Kelce route running. Maybe he can develop that, right? But I guess that's an okay pick. The Steelers take John Michael Schmitz. Love the pick. My number 1 center in the class. Love the pick. The Texans take a tight end. There's some tight ends that are getting a lot of hype this year. So I can see the Texans taking a tight end. The Cardinals take a guard in Steve Avila. I could definitely see that as well. I think Steve Avila is a good football player. Arguably the best guard in this class right after Torrence. And you can see he's the second guard that is basically being mocked here to the Cardinals. Then the Bears come back with pick 35 and they take Zay Flowers. The Bears got to add weapons on the offensive side. And I would argue, right, the Bears could even trade like to pick 9 with the Panthers, right, the first overall pick, or the Jets, right? And with the Jets, they'd have to offer like 3 or 4 first-round picks. And they could come back and take a receiver in the first round. Now, obviously, Zay Flowers in the second round, I think, is a great pick. He was at the East-West Shrine game or bowl practice, whatever, and he crushed it, man. The guy was absolutely on fire. The Rams take BJ Ojulari. I love Ojulari. In fact, I watched him beat up on Broderick Jones, who a lot of people are now projecting in the first round. So for me, Ojulari is one of those guys that I'm taking. Especially with pick 36, I think it's a low risk, high reward type of player. Love the pick for the Rams. The Seahawks take Brian Barisi. We're starting to see some more D tackles come off the board. Remember, we were told that there's like 4 or 5 D tackles that can come in the first round. Matt Miller has the next D tackle in Brian Barisi finally coming off the board, right? So second D tackle in Miller's draft goes 37th. The Raiders get Trenton Simpson. Simpson's my number 1 linebacker. I know some people love Drew Sanders. I have to go back and watch the tape a little bit more. I get how you can say Drew Sanders is better than Simpson. It'll be close in my opinion, but right now I do like Simpson more. We'll have to do a film breakdown on him, and we'll have to do one on Sanders as well. We'll probably post that to my second channel called The Football Scout. Go check it out if you guys haven't already subscribed to that one. I love Trenton Simpson's ability to cover, move in space. I think the way he moves is unique. 38 to the Raiders would be an ideal pick for me, Raider fan, if you guys don't know. Panthers, DJ Turner, good size, good processor, in my opinion. I think this is a good pick for the Panthers. The Saints take Tuli Topolodu, D tackle at a USC. In my opinion, this guy's going to be a really, really good football player, versatile. I think he had like 13.5 sacks last year, so this is a good pick for the Saints. I don't know if he's a D tackle. I know a lot of people are saying he's a D tackle. I think he's going to be like maybe a 3 tech, but more of a 4-eye, 5 tech, 6, 7, or 9 tech. And I think he'll be like a 3-4 D tackle, 3-4 outside linebacker, DN, right? One of those type of guys. I think it's going to be an interesting pick. I think he has a lot of upside. Will McDonald, it's crazy because he's going 41st in this mock draft, but I wouldn't be surprised if Will McDonald ends up being like the 5th overall pick. I think Will McDonald has more potential than a lot of people are giving him credit for. He crushed the Senior Bowl. The guy, in my opinion, has the pass rush technique, the movement that you don't see in a lot of guys, man. This guy fires me up. He's one of those guys that I would absolutely target. Then you got the Browns taking Mazi Smith as D tackle 3 in this class. I hope I don't think I missed anyone else. So that one's going to be interesting. I'm not a big fan of Smith. 337, 6'3", 337. It's good size. All right, good size for a D tackle. I just don't see it on tape from him. Maybe I got to go back and rewatch his tape. Jets take Antonio Johnson. Great football player. Obviously, safety value isn't very high. Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Falcons, or the Falcons take a wide receiver and Josh Downs. I could see how they take another receiver, but I think they got to get some tackle help. I think they got to get some O-line help, and there's a lot of offensive linemen in this draft class. I think there's going to be like 8 tackles taken in the top 2 rounds, and I would love for the Falcons to get a tackle, but I could see Josh Downs as well as a player for them. The Packers take Luke Musgrave. Tight ends, man. There's going to be like 4 of them taken in the top 2 rounds as well this year. Maybe more, maybe 5. Love Luke Musgrave. Some people have him as tight end number 1. The Patriots take Matthew Bergerian. That one's interesting because I'm going to assume he's the replacement for Isaiah Wynn, but he can also be the long-term replacement for Trent Brown. Kind of interesting. Personally, I like Anton Harrison a little bit more. Carter Warren at a Pitt has a lot of upside, but Matthew Bergerian showed up at the Senior Bowl, so I could see him definitely going 46. Got a cornerback to the Commanders. You got a tight end to the Lions. And then the Steelers get Anton Harrison. Remember, the Steelers took a different offensive lineman with pick 32. They took the center out of Minnesota. So this one's kind of interesting at this point. The Buccaneers take Jalen Duncan. Love the pick. The Dolphins take Cam Smith. The Seahawks get a quarterback in Hendon Hooker. That's interesting as hell right there, man. I love it. Absolutely love it. The Bears take Zach Harrison. The Chargers take Siaka Ika. I think Ika goes in the first round, but Matt Miller thinks he's going to go 54 overall to the Chargers. Jamari Gibbs to the Lions, love it. Absolutely love it. In my opinion, the guy's explosive. And if we only see the second running back be the 55th overall pick, I would be surprised. There's going to be a lot of good offensive players coming out of this class. Running backs, receivers, tight ends. This class is loaded with those guys. Jaguars take Rashee Rice out of SMU. The Giants take Joe Tippmann, center out of Wisconsin. The Cowboys take Clark Phillips. Cornerback, don't know if I love the pick, but I definitely understand it. I think the Cowboys need to address corner, which is why with the 26th pick, I would way rather have them take a cornerback then. And then the Bills take Deonte Banks. Love Banks. Ringo was the guy, man, that we were seeing mocked as a top 15 pick, and now he's fallen a little bit. Kind of interesting because in the national championship game, the guy had a really, really, really good game. The Panthers take Tyler Scott. The Chiefs take a tight end in Tucker Kraft, which would be kind of interesting. The Eagles wrap it up with Canute Benton. Love Benton, man. A riser in the Senior Bowl. I think Matt Miller's draft is very interesting because we're starting to see guys go higher. We're starting to see guys fall a little bit. And a lot of the information here is kind of coming out of the Senior Bowl. It's kind of coming out. And we're starting to see risers and fallers. And it fires me up because, in my opinion, this draft right here is different than some of the past drafts. The offensive lineman may not be as great in this class, but there's potential, there's upside, there's developmental pieces. But the receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks, the tight ends is through the roof, at least in my opinion. I think this class is the class where you want to get some of these guys. And I know that the receivers may not be as top heavy as like the 2020 class, right? Where we saw like CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy and Justin Jefferson and all these guys kind of come out. But I still think it's a very, very deep class where in the third round, you're going to see some guys be superstar players in 3 or 4 years down the line. So let me know what you guys think about Matt Miller's draft. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a comment below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.